Good afternoon, everyone. It's 12:15, and we will go ahead and start the webinar for today. I am Kimberly Grinston, Executive Director for the Missouri Board of Pharmacy. I also have Kim Hatfield, who is our Compliance Coordinator for the Missouri Board of Pharmacy, who is joining the webinar as well. We offer this webinar, I think, every year for several years now for graduates of some of our local schools of pharmacy, just to walk through the board's pharmacist licensing process, as many of you will be applying in the state of Missouri. Our goal is to give you some background information so that you know what you need to do and what requirements are apply in the state of Missouri. Now, this information is generally for students of Stillcop or UHSP, UMKC, SIUE, and KU School of Pharmacy. I know that there may be other students on the call, and much of this information will apply to you as well, but this information is geared towards our 4 local schools or closer schools to assist you all with the licensing process. We won't be very long today, but I wanted to walk through what you will need to do in 2024 to become a Missouri licensed pharmacist if that is your next goal. All participants are in listen only mode. There's a telephone audio option. If you're having problems with hearing through your computer, you can always call in, and when you log in, it will give you phone call information. If you'd like to ask a question, we do have a chat box. You can just drop a note in the question box. I'll probably do questions at the end of the webinar. So if you don't hear your question answered right away, it doesn't mean that we didn't get it. But if you do have a question, please drop it in the Q&A box and we'll be glad to answer if we can. Today, we're going to look at 3 things. First, the 2024 graduation season or session. We're going to talk very quickly about MPJE updates. I know many of you have questions about the MPJE as you prepare to take the exam, and then answer any questions that you all may have. And you can drop a question in the chat box at any time. So let's talk about the 2024 application process. So for those of you who may have been around a little while, or if you have some of your professors, they may be used to the old application process for the Board of Pharmacy. Generally, for the old process, you filed an application with the board office. You then filed a request to take the exams with NABP. The NABP then electronically notified the board that you filed a request to test, and then the board granted you authorization to test, or what we call ATT, with NABP. Generally, that included, we waited for your transcripts to be uploaded or sent into the board office before we did this process. We changed this process in 2023 just on a pilot basis, just to see how we could expedite this process in-house. And so I'm going to walk you through now what the current process is for applying in the state of Missouri. So I'm going to give you a couple of notes in just a minute, but I'm going to walk you through what the standard process is. First, you will need to file an NABP examination eligibility application with NABP. If you remember previously, we started with applying at the board. Now you should be filing your NABP examination eligibility application first. Once you do that, NABP will wait until your transcripts come in from your pharmacy school. They have an arrangement with your pharmacy school to have those uploaded automatically and electronically. Once they do that, NABP will notify the state board. They will grant you what's called ATT as well, and they will notify the board electronically that you've requested to test and that your transcripts are in. We check that testing list multiple times per day during the graduation season, so you don't need to contact the board to let us know that you registered with NABP or that your transcripts have been uploaded. Once you do that, the board will go ahead and clear you to take the exam. NABP will send you an email telling you that you are now authorized to purchase the exam. That email, and also schedule a testing date. That email will not come from the board office. It will come from NABP. You will be scheduling your testing date directly with Pearson VUE, who is NABP's approved testing vendor. The Board of Pharmacy cannot schedule test dates or move and/or change test dates. So you need to be working with NABP and Pearson VUE. Once you do that, you would take and pass the NAPLEX and MPJE. I know everyone on this call is going to pass on the first try. NABP will then electronically send your test scores to the board office. You do not need to contact the board to let us know that your test scores have been complete, pass, or fail. Once you do that, and your tests, and you've passed both the NAPLEX and the MPJE, then you will submit a Missouri pharmacist application to the board office. And that's the first time you'll be filing an official application with the board. Unlike the old process that started with the Missouri application, here you can submit a Missouri application once you take and pass the NAPLEX and MPJE. When you submit your application, you have to complete fingerprinting. Everyone has to be fingerprinted. Your exam scores we will pull automatically from NABP. You don't need to send us anything, including a score transfer. And we will also download your transcript, which will include and let us know what your intern hours are as well. So that whole process for the schools that are on the line, you don't need to send us your transcripts. We don't need a school affidavit from you. We will be verifying all of that directly through NABP. Now, I want to note that this application process is the preferred application process. You can still file your Missouri application at any point in this process. So you don't have, if let's say you decide for whatever reason you want to file with Missouri and NABP to take the exam at the same time, you can. However, we will hold your application until NABP has verified that your transcripts have been submitted, that you've officially graduated, and that you are ready to take the exam and or to be cleared to take the exam. So while we suggest that we do this, that you file your Missouri application at the end of the process, you could do it at the beginning or in the middle of the process if you'd like to. I don't know that there's necessarily an advantage to filing earlier than before you take the NAPLEX and MPJE. We process applications pretty quickly once they come in, and if they are complete, I'll talk to you about a complete application in just a moment. But if you choose to submit your Missouri application earlier, you can. You're just not required to any longer. You can now go through NABP. For those, you all may not remember, but when we went through the NABP Missouri old licensing process, it could sometimes take us 6 to 8 weeks to clear a student to take the exam. What we've seen with the new process is that we are now able to do that within a matter of days once your transcript is uploaded, if not within a week. So your processing time is much shorter. I'm going to answer a question now that I know is going to come up. What should you do if you've already submitted your application? You know, graduation, you've been cleared for graduation, your application is already in, that's fine. You can go ahead and start the NABP eligibility application process. You don't need to do anything else with us. We'll go ahead and enter it into our system. But again, we won't go or clear you to take the exams, NAPLEX and or MPJE. You may just be taking the NAPLEX in Missouri and the MPJE somewhere else. We won't clear you until your transcripts have been officially uploaded and provided to NABP. Once you take and pass the exams, because everyone's going to pass the exam on this call, NABP will release your score report to the board office. They do this electronically. Now, one of the things I want to let you know is that just because you can see your score report at NABP doesn't mean that your official score report has been released to the board office. There's usually a lag time, because what NABP will do is verify the score, look for any irregularities, and then release it to the board office. So you may have a notification, or you may be able to see on your NABP e-profile that you've passed the exams. However, the Board of Pharmacy may not have your exam score. We say to give us an additional 1 to 2 weeks for NABP to officially release your score. We have seen sometimes when there's been a challenge to a score, or there may be other issues, it may take a while. So just give us about maybe 1 to 2 weeks for NABP to release the score. Again, you don't have to call the board office to let us know that you've passed. We will receive that information electronically. Once you do that, your application is in, you've done your fingerprinting, the board will issue and approve your pharmacist license. A word about fingerprinting, and this is one of the benefits of the new process. We would have applicants who would apply with the board maybe in March, and then by the time they passed both exams, their fingerprints would expire. Fingerprints are only valid for 6 months. And so if your fingerprints are older than 6 months, you would have to get refingerprinted. This is the reason why we tell you to wait, or we suggest that you wait until after you've registered with NABP to take the exams, because that way you don't have to worry about being refingerprinted again and then paying a second time for fingerprints. We can only accept your fingerprints from your intern pharmacist license. Many of you hold an intern pharmacist license with the board. We can only accept those if they were also completed within the prior 6 months. Some of you did intern pharmacist, you may have done your fingerprints your first year. Those, of course, would be expired. But if for some reason you have updated prints within the previous 6 months, we can use those again for your pharmacist license within that 6-month window. And again, fingerprints must be submitted before your application can be fully approved. For those of you, just a note on fingerprinting really quickly, I just had this conversation with a new graduate just a few minutes ago. Electronic fingerprinting is the fastest. If you can go to an Identigo location, that's the board approved fingerprint testing vendor. If you can go and get your prints electronically done, we see those turned around within a matter of days. When you do fingerprint cards, those usually take a little while longer. And during a heavy graduation season, because you have to remember all of the professions are graduating, nurses, doctors, a little bit of everyone, we've seen fingerprint cards take literally months to process through by the Highway Patrol, State Highway Patrol, and the FBI. So we would suggest, if you can do your prints electronically, that you do those just to make sure that they move. Many of you are on deadlines, residency deadlines. You need your licenses by a certain point of time. Some of you have work contracts already. Again, electronic fingerprinting would be the easiest way to do this. So this is just a reiteration of the application process. Again, your scores will be released to the board office, and then your license is officially approved. Some other 2024 changes, again, just bullet points. You can now apply with NABP first to take the exams. It is not required, but strongly suggested. You no longer have to wait for your Missouri application to be processed in order to take the exams. You do not have to contact the board office when you register with NABP. We will do all of that electronically. Your transcripts, your intern hours, it should save you all a lot of time with mailing and moving information back and forth to the board office. Now, let's talk about the unfortunate event that you have to retake one or both of the exams. To retake an exam, you do need to file a retake examination application with the board before you apply or before we authorize you to retest. Every time you take the NAPLEX and or the MPJE, our office has to clear you to take the exam. So if you don't pass the first try, which everyone on this call will, if you don't pass the first try for some reason, if you're going to take it a second time, you need to file an exam app with the board so that we can authorize you to take the exam a second time. We will still be receiving your intern hours from your schools. That's UMKC, Stillcop, UHSP, SIUE, and KU. We will still be able to report those out. Your schools will send that to us. I think at the close of graduation, the schools will officially provide us that information. So if you need your intern hours verified through our office, we're still able to do that. The intern hours that we are accepting from NABP are just certification that you completed the required 1,500 hours in the state of Missouri. So let's talk about some common application mistakes so that we can get your apps moving. One of the biggest ones is your app not being signed and or notarized. Please make sure you do that. You'd be surprised how many applications come in without a signature. That also includes on the payment instrument, your check or your money order. Please make sure that's signed as well. List your school on the application because we're going to be verifying that against the graduation list. So when you send in your information, when you eventually send in your Missouri pharmacist application, make sure your school is on there. Just because we are not asking for your transcript or a school affidavit, we still need to know which school you went to so that we can process the application. Again, your money order or check not being signed, it's another major delay because then we have to mail that back to you. The mail has been moving extremely slowly. A lot of you have addresses and will be in flux, so you may not get mailing. Just please make sure you check that before you send it in. We don't have an online payment process right now. We anticipate we will have one by the end of the year, but right now we don't have an online process for new applications. The other big issue is giving us an old email address. We will communicate about your application via email. Many of you provided your email addresses that you had when you were in pharmacy school. And once you graduate, a lot of those email addresses are no longer valid. So please make sure you're giving us an updated email address, because if there's a question on your application or a delay, we are going to email you. We no longer send mailed letters unless it's something urgent. We are going to email you. Make sure you give us a valid email address. All questions not answered, make sure you're going through the list. Criminal history questions, background questions, even if you've disclosed information on your intern pharmacist application or a tech app you may have filed, please disclose it again if a question applies. And remember to also answer the tax section. Finally, the last two, we see a lot of applications where we don't have an explanation of a yes answer. So if you've had something in your background that you need to disclose, please provide just a separate piece of paper explaining it, or you can write it on the application itself, because we will delay your application and it will delay the processing if we have to then email you to ask you what the yes answer relates to. And then finally, name changes. A lot of people getting married right after graduation. Good luck to everyone, but we have a lot of people who are getting married, sometimes even divorced. Sometimes you just may have a name change. If you do that, please submit that legal documentation when you apply. So if you went to pharmacy school under the name of Kimberly Smith and you are now Kimberly Watson for whatever reason, please apply in the name that you would like licensed and then show us the connection between your name. If you've changed your name, just send us the court order. If you've gotten divorced, usually the divorce decree will work as well. Couple of additional licensing notes and we'll wrap up in just a moment. If you're applying for a medication therapeutic services certificate, this is for many of you who will be adjusting medication therapy. There is a $50 fee and a separate application. Your PharmD will qualify you for an MTS certificate. That doesn't come automatically with your pharmacist license application. That is a separate application. And that won't be issued until your pharmacist license is issued. And once those are done, we can do those at the same time. You can also apply afterwards. You don't have to apply right now, but if you'd like to do it all in one shot, you can do so. Your notifications of intent. Now that you will be pharmacists, you are required to file an NOI if you're going to be immunizing or administering medication by a prescription order. There is a separate notification of intent for each, and that's an online process that we have in the board office. I'll show you that. I think I have some screenshots of that in just a little bit, but if you're going to do that, you can do that, but you should not be doing that until your pharmacist license is issued. That process is free. And again, it's on the board's website. Here's just a link to what the MT certificate application looks like. Again, it's a separate application. This is just showing you where you can file your online notification of intent to administer and or immunize. It's on the board's main website under online services/reporting. You will see that there are two separate NOIs for you to complete. If you're doing one or both, again, no fee applies to either application. Just a couple of things. Make sure you're checking NABP's e-profile. They will be communicating with you about when you've been authorized to take the exam. And also, I have to say, if you need accommodations for the exam, we have given authority for NABP to handle those requests on behalf of the state of Missouri. So if you have an ADA accommodation, you may have had an accommodation to take a test while you were in school. If you have that documentation, send it to NABP. You do not need to send it to the board office. You can, but NABP will be looking at that and reviewing those requests. If it is denied, that will be communicated to the state of Missouri, and we will follow up on the process after that. But make sure ADA requests should be going to NABP. The board online checklist. So when you apply for the board file your Missouri application, you will get an email message with a PIN number that will tell you how to check on the status of your application. If you've already passed the exam, this process will go very quickly, but this is again a good reason why we need a good email address from you. If you need to contact us, please email pharmacist@pr.mo.gov. Email is preferred. Phone calls, we may not be able to answer right away, but we have multiple people monitoring email for questions. And just to let you know, NABP has limited testing 2-3 times per year. So for those of you who may need to take the exam multiple times, please note that that is in place. This is a copy of where you will get, and you will get this when you file your Missouri application. This is a copy of how you can check the status of your pending application online. Again, this information will come once you apply. Now, let's very quickly talk about the MPJE and some things you need to know as you prepare to study for MPJE. I get questions all the time about what my best advice is for the MPJE, and my best advice is to study for it. We've seen students who have not been successful, who focus very heavily on the NAPLEX and don't realize that the MPJE is a detailed exam. Make sure you're giving due attention to that as you study for your tests. The MPJE, which is the state law exam, this is unique to every state. So let's say you pass Arkansas's or Illinois' their MPJE, or Kansas's MPJE. We cannot accept an MPJE from another state because our exam is Missouri specific. So it has been updated to reflect all current law. We know that there have been statutory and rule changes. We go through the exam multiple times a year. The exam is up to date. Any law or rules that are updated after April 1st, 2024 are not on the exam. So we're in our legislative session right now. There will be some laws changing probably for pharmacy. We've had some new rules enacted for pharmacy. Anything after April 1st, 2024 will not be on the exam. Changes have been removed and the exam has been updated. We've got an MPJE guide that is on the board's website that everyone can use. I definitely would refer you to that. It's right here. I'm showing just an arrow. It will tell you what's not covered on the MPJE. It has a list of information. This is a screenshot of the MPJE guidance document. It has a list of statutes that are not on the MPJE. The COVID waiver language could probably come off, but these are things that we don't test on. Generally, we don't test on application procedures and those kinds of things, but they will not be on the MPJE. Also, rules that are not covered on the MPJE, that's included in the guide as well. It needs to be updated. The board recently promulgated a Class N and Class O automated dispensing rule, one for each of those. They are not on the 2024 exam. It is in the board's current statutes and rules. That the rules are currently there, but they are not on the 2024 MPJE. We would suggest you review them so you know what the law is, but we will not be testing on them. We have a practice guide. It's always remarkable to me how many people don't know that the Board of Pharmacy actually has a practice guide where we summarize some of the things some provisions of state law, and we do it in a user-friendly kind of way, if you will. So it's a lot shorter information. Don't use this as your sole guide, but it should be a guide for you. We've also published a supplement. So since then, we've had some new laws enacted that are on the exam. When you click on the practice guide, it will ask you if you want to look at the supplement. Make sure you're looking at that too, to make sure you're looking at current law. We have a law book. It's current as of March 2024. We will be updating in just a little bit. All of current laws, though, however, full text of laws are available on the board's website as well. Some additional resources I would suggest that you look at: the DEA Pharmacist Manual. This is online. The BNDD Controlled Substance Guidelines for Pharmacies. For those who don't know, BNDD is the Missouri Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. They also publish a pharmacy guide that would be helpful for you as well, and some of that information is on the MPJE. Again, everyone here is going to be successful on the MPJE. These are just some resources that will help you do that. Every now and again, we get questions about recommendations from the board on what classes or prep classes you should take. The board can't advise or make a recommendation on any private entities. Our practice guide, the manuals from the DEA and BNDD are a good start. We do suggest that you look at Missouri law. We also have some webinars on the board's website. You want to make sure you're looking at the current webinar that may have information about specific compliance provisions that may be applicable. We do not ask payment questions on the MPJE, so things like what's covered under Medicare, Medicaid, some of those questions, insurance, those you will not see on the MPJE. The MPJE is on state law that relates to pharmacy practice. So that's a very quick shot of what the 2024 graduation season is going to look like. If you give me just a moment, I will give you some additional information. Well, I'm going to go through some of the questions and see if we can answer those for you. Again, if you have questions, just drop them in the chat box or in the question box right now. We'll try to get to as many as we can. It doesn't look like we've gotten that many that have come in, but I'll check for it in just a moment. Someone has asked if it matters if still COP students list their school as still COP or UHSP. It doesn't. We'll know what school you graduated from. So if you mistakenly do that, it's fine. Again, we'll be relying on NABP and what your school electronically sends over. Someone's asking if they need documentation of a name change if it occurred prior to pharmacy school. If your degree is in a different name than your than what you're applying to the board under, or if your fingerprints are under a different name than what you're applying to the board for, then we do need proof of your name change. Let's say you change your name coming out of high school and you have a new name. It was the name you enrolled in pharmacy school under. It is your official name when you go to get fingerprinted. We don't need anything else because we're going to match against your transcript. So if they say Kimberly Smith graduated, we're going to look to see if there is a graduate in the name of Kimberly Smith. We also match last four of SSNs as well. But so if the name change is the same as when you were in school, we don't need anything additional. But if we have any questions, let us know. You can always submit it. If you have, just in case, if you think it may be an issue, but I don't think in that scenario it would be required. Someone is asking if there's a score transfer, what is the timeline to take the MPJE? Does the NAPLEX exam score expire? So score transfer would be for those students who may be taking the NAPLEX in another state. That is different from reciprocity, where we have someone who is already a pharmacist that's applying. In this instance, you may be taking the exam for the NAPLEX in Arkansas or getting authorization through California, New York, whatever it may be, and you want to send that exam score, your NAPLEX score, to Missouri. That process is handled through NABP. There's not a separate application with the Board of Pharmacy. You're still going to file an exam application. NABP, again, has a limit on when they will accept a score transfer request. Once it comes into Missouri, your NAPLEX score is generally good for 5 years, generally. So we expect you to take the MPJE after 5 years. However, once we clear you to test, so we've gotten your score transfer, you are now cleared to take the MPJE, you have 1 year to take the exam. And that actually applies to everyone. Once we clear you to test, you generally have 1 year to take the exam. Someone has asked about updating the practice guide before testing season. Yes, or should we use the 2023 practice guide? The 2023 practice guide, there is a supplement that I mentioned earlier. Look at the supplement, but it has been updated to match that supplement. Anything that has changed after the supplement will not be on the MPJE. Someone's asking, am I aware of any references that identify the difference between Missouri law and federal law? I am not. I would suggest that you talk to the schools to see if they have anything. However, there are places in the board's practice guide and BNDD's controlled substance guidelines for pharmacies where we may note and or mark the difference between Missouri law and federal law, but I'm not aware of a single resource. Are there a lot of testing dates available for NAPLEX and MPJE in Missouri, meaning scheduling a test? This is an excellent question. Thank you for this question. So again, we don't control scheduling of dates, but Pearson VUE handles testing for all different professions. So you will have nursing graduates, you'll have med school graduates, pharmacy school, teachers, just including your kids taking, I shouldn't say kids, the high school students taking the ACT and SAT. Everyone is a lot of these people will be scheduling through Pearson VUE. And so test dates may be hard to get. We always say if you get a test date that is like really far out, 2-3 months, call the board office, let us know, or shoot us an email. Let me correct that. We may not be able to change that, but we may be able to check to see if there's some other difficulty. As you can imagine, the testing centers in the major cities probably fill up very quickly. Still, St. Louis, Kansas City, Springfield, if you can, you may be able to test just maybe slightly outside of those major cities. You can actually take the NAPLEX and MPJE, I think right now, anywhere in the world, if I'm not mistaken, where there is an authorized testing center. So if you are originally from New York or Florida, there is an authorized testing center there too as well. But if you do get a delayed testing date, I would suggest looking at an alternative center, maybe outside of the major cities, to see if you can test there. We don't know how long it takes, but I know that the sooner you get in, the better. Is there a way to get a physical copy of the practice guide and the supplement? Yes, we will print one for you. You can download it online if you'd like, but if you would like a printed guideline guide, there is a cost related to that. I think it's like $12, $13, if I'm not mistaken. It's not very expensive, but you need to just email us, pharmacist@pr.mo.gov. We'll give you instructions, or for mailing in your payment into the board office, and we will print a guide and send it out to you. But we strongly suggest that you use and or print the online guide. Let's see, I think I've gotten, Jennifer in my office, our administrative coordinator just said it's $17 for a practice guide. So if you send us a check or money order for $17, make sure you tell us the address that you want it sent to. If you do that, we'll be able to get one of those printed and mailed out to you. So $17 for a practice guide. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A section right now. So hopefully we've answered everything just to get you initially started. We are recording this session and we'll post it online. So if you'd like to go back and listen to me talk very fast, you can. And also you can always email us or give us a call. We recommend that you email us first because we'll be able probably to get an answer to you as soon as possible. Best wishes to everybody who's on the webinar today. You guys are all going to do great, and it's going to be my pleasure to welcome and license you as a Missouri licensed pharmacist. If you have any other questions, again, please check with NABP for NABP questions, Pearson VUE for scheduling test date questions, the Board of Pharmacy for your Missouri application questions, and hopefully we'll be able to get you an answer. Thanks, everyone, and please have a good day.